What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Fantasy Football. My name is Ryan Linkletter, and I'm with the Dean of Fantasy Football here. We're talking rookie wide receiver rankings today. We're gonna break it down every single prospect, kind of where we see them in terms of tiers going forward. Dean, what are you looking at when you're taking a look at a rookie wide receiver heading into this draft class?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you start at the top, it's all about like talent, skill set, what you see out of the guy, and if they can perform basically just on the football field. And then for me personally, I always like to see it. Where's the opportunity coming for them? Are they added to a crowded wide receiver room, which some of these guys unfortunately have
Yeah,
that? And how you want to balance that, or is it somebody that you know is going to be slotted as a wide receiver one or two right off the bat? Juggling that, balancing that out, but you know, especially when you're looking at fantasy, don't ever forget about talent. So this is gonna be a
yep.
fun exercise. I'm excited.
Yeah, 100%. We're definitely going to hop right into this. And let's take a look at our tier list right now here. Obviously, some of the rookies are going to be cut off by me and Dean's beautiful faces, but we will have those players up for you guys. And I think safe to say, Tet McMillan in the S tier. Dean, why don't you talk about Tet and his fit with the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, so kind of everything I said that we were juggling around, right? I think for Tet, he hits everything. He is going to be slotted as the wide receiver one for the Panthers. It's a good wide receiver room over there for them, and I'm a big believer in Bryce Young heading into the next season. So the opportunity is going to be there for him, and he is top tier wide receiver coming out of this class. Probably another guy that was selected right before him that plays both ways, but pure wide receiver, he's right up there. Uh, I love Tet this year. I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to try to get early in your draft. So, I love the opportunity for Tet coming 2025.
Yeah, Ted McMillan's definitely an interesting prospect. I think a lot of people are very kind of torn about his ability to produce at the NFL level, but I think the fit's really good. Bryce Young needs a wide receiver one. We saw him, make a ton of wide receivers in Carolina, incredibly good last season. I
Mhm.
think Tet, 1,300 yards last year. Like he's productive, right? Like this guy can play football at a high level. I think with the draft capital suggests that he's going to get a clear opportunity. Two early snaps. He's the wide receiver one in this class. I think that's very clear. And in that S tier, I think we're going to put Travis Hunter in there as well. With the reports of him playing more, wide receiver, more than cornerback, I think that's great for Travis Hunter's outlook. And I think it's safe to say that he is worthy of a top 6 pick in Dynasty for sure. And I think in redraft formats, he's going to creep himself within like the 6th round, maybe even the 5th round, because he's a wide receiver too in a pass happy Liam Cohen offense. Dean, do you really like Travis Hunter or do you think he's going to bust?
No, actually, I love it. Like you said, the last thing you said, he's into a Jaguar system with Liam Cohen, and I feel a lot better. Before draft night, I wasn't really sure how he would fit into Cleveland, and
Yeah.
especially with their quarterback room, you didn't know. But then the Jaguars made the jump, and I mean, these first two, I love Trevor Lawrence in 2025. I think they're a bounce back, and for Travis Hunter is great for him that he doesn't have to be the wide receiver one. They have Brian
Yep.
Thomas Jr. He can play out of the slot, and he's such a great route runner. So where the focus for him maybe offense right off the bat, I think us as fantasy owners, we're going to feel really good about Travis Hunter heading into 2025 in his rookie year. I mean, he's going to get the ball in his hands, and then that's where the
Yeah.
explosiveness happens. He makes plays, he gets those yardage, he gets touchdowns. So I'm actually very, very optimistic about Travis Hunter in his rookie year.
I 100% am too. And I think this is where we see the drop off from the S
Yeah.
tier to the A tier. These guys behind him are not sure things right now. And I think in dynasty purposes and even redraft purposes right now, I find myself really attaching myself to Emeka Egbuka as that third wide receiver because of the situation. We know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in a pass happy offense, Dean. We know
Mhm.
that this team has supported a ton of wide receivers since Baker Mayfield took over at quarterback. I think the Chris Godwin injury situation, and we talked about this on a prior episode last week, it is bigger than many want to admit. There is a reason that this team invested a first round pick in a pure slot receiver. He is the Chris Godwin heir apparent. And I think you could see him taking a majority of snaps at some point this season or even working into a bigger role in the future. I think in 2026, I think it's safe to say he's their guy. I think this year, I don't know. It's a toss up, and I think
Right.
that makes him risky in redraft. But for dynasty, I love the fit. Talk about Emeka
Mhm.
Egbuka.
Yeah, he's one of my guys. He's one of my favorite receivers in this whole class in general. I think he's like the lowest floor of
Yeah.
receivers as well. Yeah, it was like confusing on draft night. It's like, oh, he's going to the Bucks, and
Oh
like you're
yeah,
like,
Bucks. You need defense, and you go wide receiver.
right, they go wide receiver, crowded room, but like at the same time, you're like, you know what? Like Baker's been slinging this thing, and they have a really good offense, and you're kind of hesitant because you're just like, all right, but when does he become the guy for them, right?
Yeah.
Especially if we're going to talk about redraft, when is it going to pay off when I draft for him, right? But for dynasty purposes, I think you're right. When it hits 2026, we're going to know and he's going to be established. Chris Godwin coming back, it kind of scratched your head. I was even high on Jalen McMillan because he had a
Yeah.
great year as well when Godwin went down. But now Emeka Egbuka comes back in, and I'm like, I think I love this guy now. So
Yeah.
I'm very optimistic for him as well. Just a great ball player, skill set wise. And like you said, future wise, I think this is a guy you jump in front of a lot of others.
Hey, you can't go wrong with an Ohio State or an LSU wide receiver either. You got to feel comfortable about the track record there.
Yep.
100%. So let's get into our next player I have in the A list, and this is going to surprise some people here. I'm going Luther Burden as our next player. And this might be a little bit controversial, Dean, but there are some early reports stirring from Chicago that Luther Burden only operated at the slot in practice. And we know that Ben Johnson loves his slot wide receivers, and that's going to kick DJ Moore on the outside. And then Romo Dunze obviously on the outside as well. Dean, who was the slot wide receiver for the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, that's the Sun God. That's just the PPR phenom that
Yep.
he is. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my favorites too. It, it he's one of the safest guys in fantasy, and I think probably why you put him Luther Burden into that tier is because that's what Burden can be for the Chicago offense. Safe guy, especially when we talk about PPR format, guys that's going to get these quick catches consistently right open over the middle of the field. So yeah, I love it. This was another one where like they just drafted a tight end, now they got a wide
Yep.
receiver. Like what? But you're gonna believe in it, you're gonna believe in this offense.
I'm going to believe in
both
Ben
put up.
Johnson. That's what I'm going to believe in.
Yes, absolutely. And for Burden, talk about a guy who's like impressing in training camp already. Like even just from the video route running, like I'm starting to get on the Luther Burden train as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's a perfect fit here and a lot of high potential for him this year.
And I don't think it's a question of his talent level. I think it's more of a question of his character as to why he wasn't a first round pick, why the Bears were able to select him. If he is able to clean up some stuff, just be better in terms of his effort on the field consistently, a better blocker, I think he's going to be a really good player long term for this Bears. And it's going to be like, man, how did the Bears walk away in round 2 with Luther Burden and then in round 1 get Colston Loveland? Like they might have crushed this draft if Burden can clean up some of that other stuff. Heading into our next player here, Matthew Golden. Now, Golden is a very controversial player at this point. I feel like he is a deep threat right now. His route tree is very limited, and he heads into a Green Bay wide receiver room that ultimately doesn't have a wide receiver one, and it looks like Golden's going to have to earn that position. It's not going to be given to him right now. I think the way Matthew Golden's outlook in 2025 at least looks like is more of an NVS type with LaFleur in Green Bay. Now, in the future, I could see that changing as he develops a better route tree. Obviously, we saw what Devontae Adams can do in this scheme, but as of right now, his ability as a deep threat is his calling card. Outside of being a deep threat, though, Matthew Golden's route tree is limited and still needs to develop other parts of his game. So I like him long term this year in redraft purposes. I think he's a swing and a miss. I think it's going to be tough to pick him in a lot of redraft formats this season. But in Dynasty, I still think he's wide receiver 5. What do you think?
Yeah, Ryan, I gotta a little bit disagree with you. I think you're right on the route running thing, but
Yeah.
for this Green Bay Packer wide receiver room, I don't think anyone is safe.
No one is safe. You're right.
It's crowded with good wide receivers, not great, right?
Yep.
So Matthew Golden getting that first round capital, he's coming in here, man, and I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. That's what we were talking about. Like, what do you juggle, right? Talent, opportunities, fit, right? I
Yep.
think he's going to get probably some of the most opportunities we see out of some of these other guys we're going to talk about. And for what he's going to work with Jordan Love, I think Jordan Love is a top-notch quarterback in this league. So I think that if he's going to hit, he might hit immediately for them to be paired with Jayden Reed. And like I said, I don't think anyone else is safe. So you might see a big shakeup for that wide receiver room, but you're not going to get rid of your first pick. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for Matthew Golden, I think the opportunity is going to be there. The volume in, snap count is going to be there for him. So it's just going to be on him to prove it in training camp and get those times. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in front of him.
100%. I think the opportunity for him to take over that wide receiver room is there. We'll see what happens. I feel like it's going to be one of the biggest training camp stories is where is Matthew Golden playing on the field consistently for this team. You'll see him either rise or fall. And I think he probably slots anywhere between 3 and 5 regardless in this wide receiver class. Heading into our next players here, I'm going to start with our B list. And this one might be a little bit controversial to put over some people, but I'm going to go Jack Bech for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, listen, Bech isn't the most flashy prospect. He only has one really strong year of production last year at TCU. He does have a little bit of that LSU blood in him, though, so he does have a little bit of wide receiver U. And he goes to Las Vegas where they don't have a clear wide receiver, too. He has a better shot of playing right away compared to some of these other receivers on this list. And I think Bech is an incredibly good talent. He's a stronger build slot receiver that can take over the middle of the field. He already has Brock Bowers taking up a majority of the coverage in the middle of the field. And we know Geno Smith's target rate hasn't historically been very great to the tight end position. If Bech is also operating in the slot, could he just be a bigger size Tyler Lockett for this team? I'm not opposed to that, but I think Bech can be a solid player for this team, and I am interested in seeing where he's lining up in training camp. I'm interested in seeing, is Jack Bech going to develop into a really consistent flex option in fantasy football? What do you think, Dean?
Yeah, for Beck, his value sprung up, especially around that Senior Bowl, where he performed really well. And then getting drafted to the Raiders was at first you're like, oh wow, that's great because he's going to get opportunity. All they have there is Kobe Myers. Really, I mean, like Trey, not a lot of guys to compete with, right? But then you look around the rest of the field and you say, well, their number one target's probably going to be Brock Bowers, and they just spent their 6th overall pick on Ashton Genty. So is that going to be the focus on the game? So I think the B tier is perfect for him. Listen, Geno slings that thing. So there could be an opportunity where Jake Bech is like the guy for them, but it just doesn't seem like it's moving in that direction, especially with, like I said, drafting Genty, and it might be a run-heavy offense. It's more of a let's wait and see where he develops into this offense. Because if he gets the snap counts, great. Then you can be very optimistic for him. But this is a guy that I think you got to pay attention to what's going on in training camp.
100%, 100%. Next player here, another guy that training camp, key story with these B or T players, Trey Harris for the Los Angeles Chargers. Harris is supposed to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense. We'll see. We have Quentin Johnston already there. They went out and got Mike Williams back, right? This seems like it's going to be a crowded wide receiver room and a battle for that second wide receiver spot between those 3 players. Trey Harris's production in college was incredibly good. This guy, 1,000-yard seasons at Ole Miss, was their number 1 target. You know, they had a first-round quarterback in Jackson Dart, right? Harris was his guy, right? And listen, Harris did not test well athletically. He's not a receiver that jumps off and says, oh, I'm just going to I'm that athletic guy. I have the talent for the NFL level, but his production is there. I am concerned about him as an athlete, but the production makes me a little bit more confident that, hey, maybe he's going to translate to the NFL level. And I think if he did test out well athletically, he'd probably be in that A-tier list because he'd be Los Angeles's potential wide receiver 2. He is athletic and he has the production in college. Those are all 3 things you look for. Unfortunately, he's missing one of those, and I think that knocks him down a tier because I'm a little bit concerned is he athletic enough to get open at the NFL level? Is his production going to significantly drop off from the college level because of that? I think the concerns are real with Trey Harris, but the opportunity is still there. His production in college is real. I'm not going to ignore it. What do you think of Trey Harris as a prospect?
Yeah, for Trey Harris, it's one of those things where like a combine can hurt you and or help you, right? Guys shoot up if they run a good 40 or a great cone drill, like whatever it may be, right? Like for Trey Harris, unfortunately, that didn't work out. But we know when he's on the field, he's got drafted. He's a top wide receiver. Like when he plays the game, we know he's good. But unfortunately, for those testing, it's like, oh, should we be concerned about this? So it's that's the balancing act here. But for me, I'm gonna say like I'm gonna believe in the football play, and I'm gonna say, hey, he's gonna be paired with a quarterback that throws that thing, and that's Justin Herbert, right? And listen, this new regime that we have in LA for the Chargers, correct me, I don't think they drafted Quinton Johnson, right? Like they didn't draft him, right?
No,
They just drafted, right?
Quentin
They're new.
Johnson was not part of their draft pick.
Right. And then you bring in back a Mike Williams, who I don't know when's the last time he played a full season. There's opportunity here for him. I love Justin Herbert. I think Harbaugh can feed him in well. I think he's kind of right there with the Bech, like you're saying, just the same tiers, because you got to wait and see. It's like if he slots in as the wide receiver 2 alongside Lad McConkey, like, all right, then we can do it. We can see what Justin Herbert has done with a rookie wide receiver, right? Like it's production. So I have high hopes just because I think of the team he's on and the quarterback he's with for him. So I'll lean on the optimism.
100%. Let's get into our next player here, Jayden Higgins for the Houston Texans, closing out our B tier here. Higgins is a player that I'm a little bit torn on, just a little bit. I think as a prospect, he's intriguing. I think as a fit, it's intriguing as well, but something is telling me Jayden Higgins might struggle in the NFL and translating his game from Iowa State and the players he played against to the NFL. Now, his teammate Jalen Royals, I'm going to have him in tier 3, and I think he might even have, the C tier, but he might even have a better opportunity because he is more of a slot type receiver. And Higgins, obviously being on the outside, has to run a different route tree, stuff like that, which could be harder to translate to the NFL level. I think Higgins is in a great spot for opportunity in year one. We know that outside of Nico Collins and Tank Dell's injury, right, this Houston Texans team's receiver room is very depleted, and they did add Christian Kirk, but he's going to be a slot guy. So Higgins has the opportunity, but I don't know. I'm not buying into the Jayden Higgins is going to be the automatic second option in this offense. I think Kirk, as a veteran, still could be that guy. And we saw last year, without an offensive line, this Houston Texans passing game was incredibly bad and was frustrating to watch in fantasy football. So it makes me worried that this year the offensive line still has a good amount of problems. I'm a little bit bullish on Jayden Higgins. What do you think?
Yeah, so for me, before the draft, I liked Jayden Higgins. I just loved his physical size, and I think
the size is for sure intriguing.
Yeah, he looked like a pro receiver, and I was very excited. My concern is just I don't know how well he complements the rest of this offense. Like you said, with Nico Collins, like Jalen Noel, like he makes sense to complement Collins, like Nico. Yeah. Nico's the number one. Not going to change. Like no one's coming in and changing that, right? But for Higgins, I'm not sure how well he meshes in with everything. Like I said, his size helps, but I need to see more of him. This is probably going to be a guy where I might pass on him more because I don't see really the much opportunity for him to get a lot of volume from that offense.
Yeah. You have Nico Collins as the primary outside receiver. Like if Collins was more of a slot guy, I think Higgins would be a little bit higher on my list, but
exactly.
He's not. Yeah. So it changes a little bit. I think it's safe to say, like, we'll put Jalen Noel in that C tier, kind of what we both talked about. Right. Like we just talked about, Higgins' situation. I think it's fair to say throw Noel in there. I like Noel in terms of dynasty purposes. I think Christian Kirk is going to get a clear opportunity to start for this team early on. Noel is going to have a hard time cracking the field, I think, just because Christian Kirk is there. But I think Noel's a great prospect. I absolutely love this guy as a prospect. I think long-term it makes a ton of sense. Tank Dell's dynasty value, Dean, is cooked. This guy, unfortunately, the injuries are tough. Like they draft a slot receiver and Noel, who's a great like athletic prospect, it's tough for him long term. Noel finds our C tier, and then our next player here, we are gonna get where is it? Kyle Williams right here in the C tier, Patriots wide receiver. Dean, why don't you talk about Kyle Williams?
Yeah, this is just a guy that's going to be prime for an opportunity. That wide receiver room is confusing. It's kind of somewhat of like Green Bay, but probably like I mean like a little lesser value in a sense.
Yeah,
But there's opportunity there. He can come in and thrive. And you see what they're doing in New England, building around Drake May. You know, getting Drake May last year to be their franchise quarterback. They brought in Stephon Diggs, but like that doesn't worry me at all. He's an older guy coming off an injury. Like they can play together, or even if Diggs plays or doesn't, like who knows? But like Kyle Williams can have an opportunity to come into this offense and become the wide receiver one. Like he has that in front of him. There's really no one like blocking him, like we just talked about the Texans, right? Like Nico Collins solidified. For the Patriots, they're trying to figure it out. They're just take a hope and a prayer that it could be anybody. And for Kyle Williams, he's a guy that everyone thought was like, hey, like this is sleeper. Don't he might be a guy that shoots up the boards, right? Yeah,
yep.
he might now because you have a guy like Drake May. If he performs well, you have a great duo right there in New England. So a lot of high hopes for Kyle Williams as we head into the season.
Kyle Williams had one of the more impressive wide receiver tapes that I watched in this class. I think he was within our top 50 draft prospects, I think, with a consensus ranking from all of our blitz analysts. Williams is, just a very good player, and he didn't necessarily have the great situation that, a lot of these guys at a big school had. He didn't necessarily have a good quarterback to consistently get him the ball. But when you watch his tape, like this guy gets open, he can run good routes, and he has a very good ability to like make contested catches, which is incredibly nice to see. I think like he has a clear opportunity, like you said, to work himself into this wide receiver room. Now we know that Stephon Diggs is working back from an injury, right? And they obviously have some other players mixed in there that are going to be competing for snaps. Why can't it be Kyle Williams? Why can't this rookie, have a great preseason, great training camp, and work into this and be a flex option for us this year? We know Drake May's talented. We know they improved the offensive line. If Kyle Williams shows out and balls out, in training camp, preseason, we're hearing good reports. This guy is well worth picking in redraft formats. And in Dynasty, man, this guy's going to shoot up draft boards just because of that situation. So let's get into our next guys here. I have Jalen Royals here in the C tier here. And then we're going to put Elic Ayomanor here as well. And we'll talk about both these guys a little bit more quickly. I think with Royals being with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, right, you're going to have opportunities eventually. And Marquise Brown's on another one-year contract. He'll likely be gone, and I think he slots more into that role. We don't know the long-term future of Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, if those guys will be extended long-term in Kansas City. But if they don't, Jalen Royals, I guess, could work into that role. I think that his outlook, right, I think his ceiling is a B-tier receiver in this class. Like, it's not super high. I think his ceiling would be a consistent flex option, but he's athletic, and we know the Chiefs are very solid at finding some options at the receiver position. So I think with Royals, you're just trusting the situation. And then with Ayomanor, this one's the more intriguing prospect. The Titans didn't necessarily add very good receivers. They have Calvin Ridley. He returned. Outside of Calvin Ridley, nobody else. Like, right. It could be Elic Ayomanor, and a lot of people really liked him coming out. So I think he's a very intriguing option at the receiver position. Another wait and see, but dynasty purposes, why not throw a dart on this guy, hoping that he hits? And in redraft, I don't know if I'm drafting him just yet, but I think he's well worth taking a look at. What do you think of those two guys?
Yeah, for both Star Royals, I mean, just to be on the Kansas City offense is always a plus, right? And for the Chiefs, it's kind of like this recent years, they recycle kind of the wide receiver position at whatever they can do affordable, whether it's a draft pick or maybe a one-year deal with a nice vet. It's never their priority, right? So they're going to get guys who can come in and be effective on the field. And for Royals, like if he's established, okay, then you have him for a whole rookie contract with the Chiefs. We'll see what happens in the future, but then he becomes a vital part in an offense run by Patrick Mahomes. For Ayomanor, like you're taking a chance on where he can come in with the number one overall pick, and there may just be chemistry right off the bat, right? Like you said, all there is Calvin Ridley, who I think is great. I think it can be a great season for him with Cam Ward, but a guy that's going to be on the same length of contract with Cam Ward now, it might just be a pairing that hits on the Titans' #1 overall pick. So you're really just hoping for upside. Like I said, dynasty more, redraft. I don't think so. Maybe like a waiver wire middle of the season, but that's about it.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get into the D tier on this list. These guys will be a little bit quicker. You have Pat Bryant here. You have Isaac Tesla. You have Horton here. And then you have Felton, all in the D tier mixed in. I know we got 4 guys for you here, but we're going to talk a little bit about each prospect. You know, Isaac Tesla is an interesting one out of all 4 of these guys. I think out of them, he has the best chance of having long-term production. The Lions, this was their guy. This was the Lions guy that they wanted in this draft, and they traded up to make sure they got him. That says a lot to me about what they think about Tesla's long-term production there. I think in redraft, he's screwed. I don't love it. And there were reports of, them saying they wanted to trade Jameson Williams. If he can work into a bigger role within this offense long-term, I think it's intriguing. But this season, I don't see it at all. Like, it doesn't make much sense. And out of these other guys, right, you have Torrey Horton in here, who I thought was really good at Colorado State, but he lands with the Seahawks, who kind of have a little bit of a smaller wide receiver jam right now. We'll see if he could kind of work in as that outside third receiver, but they signed some veterans as well. He's going to have a hard time finding the field. Same thing with Ty Felton, him landing where he did with the Vikings. We know the Vikings receiver room is incredibly deep. And then you have Pat Bryant, who I think out of these 4 is very intriguing because he lands with the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos definitely have a lot of opportunity. Dean, what do you think about these 4 guys?
Yeah, I think for these guys, they're landing just on teams where they could succeed if they get the opportunity. But that's the question mark. When and where are they going to get the opportunity? Like I said, for Bryant, like he's more intriguing because you don't know in front of him isn't anyone too crazy, right? You have Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims, who's getting traction, right, for fantasy. Like, but that's kind of about it. I think it's kind of a up in the air of who else is there. For Tesla, being in the Lions offense is prime real estate, right? And if they also went and got him, right? Like they made an effort to go get him. So speaks volumes. And for the other 2, it's just, it's kind of a wait and see. We're not going to sit here and tell you, be like, who you should grab at the last round. Like, no, that's crazy talk because of the people that are in front of those guys. And also just the fitting as well. So these are guys just to, hey, keep an ear out, right? Maybe remember the name, but not much traction until you see them get on the field.
Yeah, 100%. And then this last tier here, I think out of these guys, I think Savion Williams is the one I take a look at. Obviously, Isaiah Bond did not get drafted. Restrepo ran a lineman 40. Tez Johnson, 7th round pick. And then Nash, necessarily not an intriguing prospect for me. Savion Williams, out of these guys, he's intriguing because he's on the Packers, right? We talk about this Packers wide receiver room because they don't have a guy. Like, Who knows? Savion Williams could step up and be that guy for them. But it's an extreme dart throw at this point. We're just saying, hopefully, Savion Williams, like it's the 3rd, 4th round of our dynasty draft. We're like, man, I'm just going to throw a dart. Savion Williams. Let's see if he hits in Green Bay. That's where we're at on this list.
Yeah, if you have a deeper dynasty draft, I will say, if a guy got drafted, that speaks a lot more than guys who didn't. The undrafted.
Hey, who are you talking about?
I'm just saying, man, like there's some undrafted stories that are beautiful, maybe a Victor Cruz, right? But that's like 1 in 1,000 that happened. You know what I mean? So Savion was nice. I thought he would be someone that like just lands in a great situation, but he landed literally the wide receiver room where we're like, we don't know what's going on there and it's open door. So honestly, maybe he does find opportunity. Like I said, no one's safe there, right? And for the others is just, maybe they were just mis-scouted. Who knows? But we'll see.
All right, guys. Here is our tier list for our wide receivers here. McMillan, Hunter, those are your guys. A tier, Egbuka, Bird, and Golden. Then you have Jack Bech, Trey Harris, Higgins in the B tier. And then when you work down, we're throwing some darts. We're praying and hoping some of these guys are incredibly good prospects. We really appreciate you guys tuning into our wide receiver rookie rankings. Drop a comment down below which player you think needs to go higher or lower on our tier list and explain why. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more Blitz fantasy football content. And me and Dean will catch you guys next time.